On today's episode of the ricecrypto show, I am joined by returning guest Jason Crowe, aka Crowetic. He is the founder of Qortal. I will include links down below and above for his previous appearances. Today we're going to continue our discussion and learn more about Qortal, a blockchain protocol that is building a decentralized, censorship-free internet. Before we get into it, make sure you visit ricetvx.com and sign up for my mailing list so you never miss an update or new Rice TVX and Rice Against the Grain content. You will also find links to all of my various channels as well as my social media. Make sure you're following both of my YouTube channels, Rice TVX as well as Rice Against the Grain. And due to censorship, make sure you follow me on other alternative platforms such as Rumble and Odyssey, where I do post up exclusive content. If you want to support Rice TVX, be sure to check out and join my Patreon channel, where you will get early access to my videos with no ads, unedited. You will also get exclusive content and more. I will include links in the video description for everything I just mentioned, as well as everything shared on today's video. Joining me on today's show is a returning guest. This is Jason Crowe. He is with Qortal. I will include links down below for his previous appearances. He was on the show this year. It's been several months since he's been on. I will include a link for that appearance and also his first appearance, which I have over on my Odyssey and Library channels. So, Jason, welcome back to the show. What's going on, my friend?
Hey, man, it's always good to be here with you. I always appreciate the way that you run your interviews, and I think now we've got a pretty nice rapport and a good friendship going too. So no, it's awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the conversation. And what I will also be doing is me and you were involved in the Crypto Mindset Reset Summit. You had done a presentation on Qortal. I did a kind of a speech of my own, but during your presentation, I introduced you. You did your thing, and then I kind of did almost like a little mini interview and try to take some questions from the viewers of the virtual summit. So I'll try to get that included on my, as I was asking you, I'm probably going to put it up over on my BitChute, my Rumble, and Odyssey channels, which will include Library, and I'll have a link down below for that so people can check that out for more detail to kind of get your presentation plus the questions that I asked you, which some may be redundant with this because there's a lot into the Qortal Project. That's why I really want people to check out those previous interviews. I'll try not to make too much repetitious stuff if I can help it. But if you were to describe Qortal to somebody who had no clue what the hell Qortal is, your elevator pitch, how would you describe it in a short amount of time to somebody who may be unfamiliar, even with cryptocurrency?
See, it's really kind of difficult to do that because to understand why Qortal was built, you have to kind of understand the issues that exist in the current space and also issues in the blockchain space. But to give it a shot, I would basically say it is a complete digital infrastructure replacement for what exists now, from the internet to communications to data and web hosting, application hosting, everything that can be done on the internet to also everything that can be done in the financial sector and trading. It's literally a digital infrastructure replacement for everything that exists now. That'll allow you to do similar things with a much better back end, all done completely P2P, decentralized, and encrypted.
So basically creating or building a brand new internet.
Yeah, a brand new internet with a brand new economic system built in a brand new way, and all of that tied together with multiple supported currencies and cryptocurrencies. Obviously, we do not support USD, anything centralized. All of that stuff, all in one place, easy to use, straightforward. It's quite a lot, right? Like there's a lot to it, but we try to make the user interface as simple and straightforward as possible. And we've got quite a few you know, people who are not tech savvy, people who are, you know, in older years, and they are able to use this. So I think so far we've done a pretty decent job of making it simple and as straightforward as possible. And of course, as time goes on, we will, you know, improve that. And if people have been following us for a while, they will have seen a lot of those improvements already.
Yeah, I was just looking at the video that we did last time, and that was 7 months ago on May the 2nd. I spelled decentralized wrong, and I'm just noticing this. Like, and I had somebody helping me at the time that it was actually doing that thumbnail, and neither one of us caught this. So I'll have to fix that when we're done. It's a decentralized. Decentralized. Interesting. Yeah, I have to fix that. Sorry, man.
No worries.
Yeah, no, I really like this idea of a censorship-resistant internet.
Not resistant, censorship-proof.
Well, censorship-proof, because, yeah, one of the things that I was asking you during the Crypto Mindset Reset was, as far as video hosting, as far as web hosting and things to that effect, or even, like, let's say in the future, like an Instagram-type protocol on the Qapps, what would be the guidelines for what can or cannot be allowed on the platform? And really, like you said, it's pretty much anything goes, but you as a user have the option, and this is what I really like, is you can block people, you can block other users. So I was going to kind of dig into that a little bit, since we talked about that briefly. When I block somebody, because we'll get into the name services, but I can select a name and have my own name on the Qortal blockchain that would allow for me to have it as a receiving address for my cryptocurrencies that are supported, in addition to, or is it only Qort?
It's only Qort, because I mean, we directly
communicate
as far as trading, but we can't like put a name to an address on another chain, right? So only the Qort address is associated with the sending, receiving portion of that, and most of everything that's regarding the name registration, because that requires the functionality of the Qortal blockchain. So the other blockchains, you know, we can't really do that. I mean, we potentially could, but you know, that's like something that we're not really focused on at all right now. So yeah.
Okay, that's cool, and I appreciate you clarifying that too.
Yeah.
So with the names, you can permanently own them. There's going to be a names market that will allow for you to sell names. You can create a website with that name. It would be your username. So if I was, let's say, and obviously your username is Crowetic, right?
Right.
So if I didn't like anything that you were doing, and I was on Qtube when it's up, which would be like a YouTube type replacement, and I block your name, I just won't see anything from you. It'll be almost like you don't even exist.
Exactly. And not only that, you won't even process transactions from my account. So you will literally ignore me completely.
Wow.
Right? Yeah.
It just like almost like makes you a ghost on your on what you're doing. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. And I like that, because with what we have going on with the battle that I call for free speech, a lot of people are calling for censorship. They're calling for people's websites to be taken down, their YouTube channels to be taken down, to be demonetized, to be shadow banned, and all these different things, as opposed to just tuning out.
Right.
Yeah. Like I grew up in the Howard Stern era. So he has since turned into something completely different. But back in the day, he was fighting for free speech, and he was saying some of the most outrageous things, but they weren't taking him off the radio.
Right.
You had the choice of tuning into his show or not.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what I feel like what Qortal's kind of offering with that name service, and being able to block people. So that way, in case somebody's putting up some things that would be deemed immoral, when it's censorship proof, when it's and I brought this up, and I'm to be careful with my words, but anything that's related to children and harm, the combination thereof, or separate, but having that in and I'm going to use video for specifically, there's nothing that can be done in a sense to avoid it being on the platform. It's just you would have to block those users is really what it would come down to.
What we're going to ultimately get down to, right, is there will be the ability to jump into a group. And now that group will be a group that specifically set a number of rules that that group abides by, right? Now, if you choose to, you can jump into that group, and that group will have those rules assigned so that you will automatically assign those rules by being in that group. So what we can do is things like, censorship on behalf of a parent for their child, right? So if you don't want your child to see certain things, we can have like a child group where you as the parent get the child to join that group on their account, and then everything that that group says shouldn't be seen will automatically be blocked, right? So we will be able to do things like that in the very near future as well. So the groups system on Qortal has a lot more functionality than what people are seeing right now. Now it's used mostly for creating chat groups or groups for just people to get together or whatever, so that they remember which account is which. But the groups functionality, it has a lot more down the line that we're going to be able to do with it. And so say like people in China or whatever country, right? They can decide that they want to follow the laws of their country, right? So then that group could potentially have all of the things that would make it so that Qortal follows the laws of that country, and they can jump into it, right? So it's going to be fully under the user's control which things that they do or see or whatever, right? And it's going to be a lot easier in the future to make those things happen. Now, right now, it's all completely individual. You as the user decide whether you block or not block a specific name. Now, we'll just get a lot more functionality as time goes on. So people need to realize that this is a base level infrastructure platform. It is like so much stuff that can be done with that base level infrastructure that everything that we're building now is essentially just a demo of a portion of some of the functionality that can be done, right? So there's like a lot more that will come along as we get more development assistance, as we get more things at the base level completed that will allow more to take place on top of it, and we'll continue to build more demos. And the Qtube or whatever we're going to call it, right? Doesn't matter what the name is, because anybody can take the code from that, make their own name, put it up there, and then decide which videos they want to let through and which ones they don't, right? So they can pull any video because there's an underlying infrastructure that exists that has all of the videos that have been ever published. They can decide, I want the videos from this name, this name, this name, and only show those, right?
Yeah.
So it's really, really cool to have that underlying infrastructure there.
Very customizable.
Right.
And I wanted to bring this up because to have something that's truly censorship proof and offers true free speech, that is a double-edged sword. And I'm also saying it too because it's not as if Jason Crowe or anybody else in the Qortal network supports anything that most people would think you shouldn't share with people, like videos that cause harm or children-related videos. So I just wanted to make sure I put that distinguishment there, that even though people could utilize the platform in those means, that it's not something that you guys are directly supporting. You're just supporting free speech and censorship proof, and you're allowing for the community, in a sense, to police their own network. Because again, you can block people, and then there's more functionality that'll be added. And the way that I also look at the project too, it's obviously, I think, a lot different than a lot of the layer 1 protocols that are trying to compete with Ethereum. But the idea of Ethereum trying to be a world computer is very similar in a way, to briefly describe what Qortal's trying to do. It's like we're trying to do something similar to what Ethereum is trying to do, but on steroids.
Right. Yeah. It's really what they were trying to do, but done correctly, because a lot of the stuff that they ended up doing, in my opinion, is semi-centralized at best. And so we are taking that and making it so that everything is completely decentralized, which means you're never going to be dealing with a company. You're never going to be dealing with any sort of middleman in between what you're doing and what you need to do, right? So it's, we're just trying to follow the original concepts of how a decentralized and distributed network should function, and applying that to a lot more than just, financial transactions and so forth. And
you mentioned kind of like, and I know it could be a a long answer, but problems that we're seeing in the cryptocurrency blockchain ethos, just in the community overall, since the beginning of Bitcoin being created, the ideologies of the vision of Satoshi Nakamoto to where we are today. Where do you feel like Qortal is trying to bring back things to that original vision?
So when the Bitcoin white paper was written, it was assumed that everyone was going to use their individual home computer to mine and run the network. They were supposed to mine to a full node that they were running, right? And that keeps the network completely decentralized. What ended up happening, of course, is the algo got put onto faster and faster machines, first graphics cards, then ASICs. And now you have to buy a bunch of these machines to even keep up and compete. And now that's another thing that we've removed, is that competition. So every minter on the Qortal blockchain gets a fair share of the reward regardless of whether they sign the block or not. Every single block that goes by, you get rewarded based on your level. And your level is based on your time already contributed towards moving the blockchain forward, right? So we've removed the competition. We've made it so that individual user computers are the ones that run the network, and that every single person running Qortal right now runs a full node, so that you're not relying upon someone else for your node. You're not relying upon a centralized mining pool so that you can try to compete with the bigger miners, because there's no competition at all. And it actually brings it back to literally having the power in the hands of the people. It's not the power in the hands of the people who have more money, or the power in the hands of the people with warehouses and free power. Like, no, like, we're trying to literally bring it back to where each individual user communicating to their own computer can take part in the network. And their own computer can be as small as a Raspberry Pi 4. It doesn't matter. You can have that, or a super expensive fast server in a data center somewhere. Doesn't make a difference, right? You're only able to submit your minting signature as a block goes by, and you only get one block for each block going by. And each person shares the reward based on their level and how long they've been contributing to the network. More influence, more reward as you level up. So it's a completely different way of looking at things. And we do have now in the minting consensus a memory-based proof of work. So people who like proof of work can say, oh, look, we also have now a proof of work built into the minting, so that we're also doing a memory-based proof of work with every single block that's going by too. So it's essentially proof of contribution over time and a memory proof of work now. So it makes it a really robust consensus that actually allows for what was supposed to have happened with Bitcoin. Oh, I lost your audio.
It's because I muted myself, and I do this periodically to make sure nothing else comes through. But what exactly is memory proof of work?
Okay, so that is an algorithm that we have developed that is essentially the same thing as any other type of proof of work, but it's done utilizing memory bandwidth. It's not done utilizing how much memory you have, so that you can't get a computer with more memory and say that it's going to do something better or faster, right? And we've also made it so that, like, okay, so for instance, on the Bitcoin network, you have a difficulty, and that difficulty goes up and down based on how many miners are on the network or how large the hash rate is, right? And so that difficulty changes. Ours is completely different. What we're trying to do is limit how many minting signatures a single computer can submit within the minting signature window, right? So what we're doing is having a set difficulty on the network that everyone follows and doesn't change. And we're making it so that only a maximum of 2 minting accounts per each node, physical piece of hardware, any computer, can be submitted in the window necessary to be credited for the blocks, right? So this prevents people from applying 1,000 minting keys to a single node and making it pretend to be multiple, right? So that now is no longer a problem. And that was what one of the main issues in the beginning was. A few people decided that they wanted to sponsor a bunch of accounts for themselves, and they were able to do that fairly easily because we had both a higher limit on how many sponsorship keys could be issued at one time, which it used to be 5, right now it's 2. And they could also run as many minting keys as they wanted on a single piece of hardware. So that made it much easier for this game to take place. And now that we have taken care of in multiple ways. And so now we're pretty confident that the future of the network will be in the hands of the legitimate minters, and that we can move forward from this, having learned a few things. Yeah.
Okay, well, for people that are listening, Jason is not talking about like a video game or anything like that that's on Qortal. It's people who have gamified the system, utilizing this mechanism and creating more accounts that would essentially give them more reputation, more voting when the voting is available. There's essentially a lot of different things. So you guys just recently went through a hard fork fix to fix what you guys are calling the self-sponsorship.
Yes.
It's self-sponsorship fix.
Yep. We call it the self-sponsorship algorithm because it is an algorithm that our developers have put together with assistance from multiple other people in verifying all of this data and coming up with the data points that we would use to build this algo. We have now completed that algo, and it was implemented on block 1092400. I believe. I forget. Or maybe it was different. But the hard fork block
wasn't too long ago.
Yeah, it was not that long ago. It looks like you maybe have an old copy of Explorer up there because...
Well, I got it directly from the website.
Because the block height was... I'm like looking at that going, that's completely wrong. Yeah, there we go. Now it's better because it did take place at 1092400, and that was showing 104 before. So I was like, what? So yeah, 1104 is what we're at now. That's correct. So you must have been like a cached old copy of the block height there. But yeah, well, so 1092400, the hard fork block took place, and what that did is it used this algorithm, which took a bunch of different data points into consideration to determine whether an account was controlled by a single person. And not only that, but also to make sure that accounts that were not controlled by that same person, but were sponsored by that person, were not penalized. So it was very difficult to come up with all these data points and to use them in the correct fashion to make sure that both the accounts that should have been penalized were, and the ones that shouldn't were not. And so it took us a little longer than expected. And that's why some of our new features that we've been talking about for a while are not completed now, is because we realized that this self-sponsorship issue had become a larger issue than we had hoped, sooner than we had expected. Now, obviously, this one game self-sponsorship was the one game since the beginning. So we've known that this was the only way that you could game the system and, cause any sort of issues. And so we've always had a plan to take care of it. And we've told people this since Genesis. And we had expected to be able to do it a little bit later so that we could have the Qapps functionality and all the other stuff done sooner. But, it ended up working out this way. And it's good that we got it taken care of sooner rather than later, and that we can demonstrate that we were going to do this, and how we did it is a way that was not controlled by people. No one decided who was penalized. It was done by an algo that took data into consideration, and it did not matter whether you were a founder or any other account. They treated them all exactly the same, and the same results happened to everyone. And so, yeah, it was, a way to demonstrate, both the ethics of the development team and how we make sure these things are taken care of. But now we can move on, and it's going to be much, much better for the legitimate minters of the system from this point on. And I'm pretty excited about the future of what we're going to be able to do now, because now that we've gotten this out of the way and development doesn't have to focus on it anymore, we can do back to back new features, because we've been slowly planning for these anyways. And now a lot of them are almost complete on the back end. So it's going to be like really like back to back. And you're going to see so many new improvements that are visual type improvements, as opposed to ones like this that are fixing back end issues that people can't really see. Right.
Right. No, that makes sense. And I appreciate you explaining that. Also, you mentioned every court holder basically is running a full node.
Yeah. Everyone who uses Qortal right now is running a full node, because that is the only way that you can use Qortal right now.
Okay. And you said you can do that with a supercomputer, or you could do it with a Raspberry Pi 4.
Yep.
And it won't make any difference whether you're using a supercomputer or a Raspberry Pi 4.
Nope.
So, okay, because that's where you're bringing in that equality and fairness per se.
Right. We wanted it to be so everyone could take part. And now the only way that everyone can take part is that you can take part with basically any computer, right? And if that can't take place, then it's not completely leveling the playing field. And this is as close as you can possibly get.
And that's kind of what we're talking about with removing the ability to gain influence by monetary means.
Right. Yep.
Okay. How are new tokens minted?
So it's not a token technically, right? So a token is a coin on top of another base level blockchain.
So is this a crypto? Is Qrt a cryptocurrency?
It is a coin. We call it a service coin because ultimately it is meant to power the functionality of the Qortal blockchain, right?
Like a
from
gas.
just rewarding people to also, the names functionality is going to be huge for that. And a lot of other stuff, tipping and inside of Qortal that's going to be necessary to use Qrt, right? So Qrt is a service coin. It is a coin because it is a primary layer one blockchain that has its own native coin, right? Now, technically on the chain, every single thing like that is considered an asset in the technical terms, but yeah, it's a coin. And so,
Okay.
yeah, the coin is created by way of the minting consensus. So proof of contribution over time plus memory proof of work, which is all done automatically, right? So what you have to do if you would like to become a minter is speak to another minter of level 5 or higher, and they give you what's called a sponsorship key. Now, I like to explain that sponsors do not get anything for sponsoring a new minter. They only get the joy of creating
It's not
a
like
new
an
minter,
affiliate
right?
or a referral.
Yeah, no,
or
right.
anything
So
like
people
that.
hear the word sponsor and they also hear the word leveling and they think, pyramid because
Multi-level marketing.
Right. The world is so screwed up with all these pyramid schemes and nonsense that that's what people immediately think of. And I always like to clarify that because there's nothing like that at all. It's really just a way to verify that humans are being created as mentors, right? And so the other humans who are already level 5 or higher can utilize their skills as a human being to determine whether this new person is going to be a legit mentor, right? And so ultimately, it really comes down to what it was meant to be used for is for people to sponsor the people that they know in person, their friends,
Okay.
family, people that they know in person for sure, right? And so that's the best way to go about it. If you're, a new level 5 mentor and you're like, yay, I can sponsor people, but how do I go about this? The best way to do it is to just sponsor people that you know in person. If they don't understand anything about any of this, doesn't matter. Just get them running a node, get them sponsored, tell them to assign their key to their node and just let it sit, right? Eventually they'll understand this. Eventually they'll start using it and they'll be happy, right? So it's really just, of course, if you have friends online, you've known forever, stuff like that, totally. If you know the person is real is the main thing. And so that's the only thing that we request that the sponsorship enabled accounts do is just verify who you're sponsoring. Like we want our network to be as strong as possible. And especially early on, it really matters who is sponsored, right? As it gets massive and we have millions of mentors, it's not going to matter quite as much, right? But in the beginning, it really does because that is the core group of people who would then expand out from there, right? So we really need to make sure that that core group is as legitimate as possible.
Okay. And I mentioned reputation a couple of times. What is the purpose of reputation on the Qortal blockchain and ecosystem?
Yeah, so we're going to have multiple different types of what I call leveling methods, right? So the first one and the only one that exists now is minting. So you contribute your time. The longer you contribute your time and you submit your minting signatures, you get blocks minted. And each block that goes by that you have your key assigned, you get another block minted. And so that can be directly assigned to the weight in the voting system. And now the voting system is essentially going to be the overall consensus of the platform in the future, deciding things from which new coins get supported in the trade portal and in wallets and to other things. All kinds of decisions that can be made will be made utilizing the voting system. And anyone who's a level 1 or higher minter can submit a proposal to the voting system to then have the rest of the community vote on it, right? Then once it passes, if it's something that needs to be developed, it goes to the developers. They decide whether it can be built as written or if it needs to be modified, changed, sent back, voted again, whatever. Once it's to a point where it can be built, the developers build it, and then it gets signed by the developer admins, who are the most active, longest term, most contributed code developers. and they push out the auto update. So it's going to be the way that the whole system is actually built and moves forward, right?
And a lot of this too, if people want to get more explanation, I mean, a lot of this is on the website, but asking you the questions so that people can kind of get a better understanding, I think definitely helps.
Yeah, and the wiki might be a good one to bring up too, wiki.qortal.org.
Can you access it via the website?
I believe so. It should be under either community or technicals. No, maybe overview. I don't know. They move stuff around. Try overview. Wiki, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and again, I'll have everything linked down below.
So we have a very extensive wiki. As you can see, like there's a lot of information here. I think this is probably the most extensive wiki of any blockchain project I've ever seen. We have a lot of community members that help out with putting information here or translating information that I say into a way that can be understood by everyone and putting that up here. So like this should explain basically any question that you have. It can be answered here. And there's a search function for, asking them to, or there's, the frequently asked questions section and so forth. I put a bunch of guides up here on how to set up different things for Qortal and so forth. We've got a lot of information there. So
no, it looks like it. I don't think I've taken the time to actually look at the wiki, and just looking at the left side, the project, the important notices, the introduction, the project model, the minting, the communications, the trade portal, data hosting, voting system, AT system, hardware, media related, the frequently asked questions, how-to guides, node setup guides, third-party services, which would include Crowetic.com, which we'll talk about towards the end of the video, because you offer a lot of hardware that people can utilize to run the Qortal blockchain and get involved with the ecosystem.
Correct.
Okay, so the next thing I wanted to ask you was, we had talked before about ISP and mesh networks. That's one of the things that really, really honestly attracted me to the project.
Yeah.
Because with censorship, I mean, not only are we looking at censorship from platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, but we're also looking at taking it even a step further with basically your internet service provider. Like if you're in China, your internet service provider is going to be able to determine what they would allow for you to see. They can block websites and all kinds of things to that effect. So, obviously I'm not a huge fan of that. So in the ideas of agorism and utilizing something like Qrt to build censorship-free internet with all these different functionalities underneath of it, where are we at with Qrt becoming an ISP, and what's the progress with the net? Is it all related to mesh networks? Is it separate? Is there a combination? How does that work in addition?
So ultimately, we are going to get to a point where you won't need a traditional ISP in order to utilize the functionality of Qortal, which should be basically the functionality of everything that you do on your computer, aside from the stuff that's done like completely locally on your computer, right? So like all of the stuff, right? So what we need to do first is we need our network to be much larger. We need more nodes to be within a radius of whatever wireless technology can be utilized to establish the mesh network, which there are multiple different types, from ham radio to regular wireless type communications to Bluetooth to, in the future, I would like to see a new type developed that doesn't cause, negative radiation effects and so forth. But besides all that, right, we need to first have the network get to a point where a mesh network can be established easily, right? We can't, at this point right now, start establishing a mesh network because we don't have enough nodes that are within a radius of each other to actually make a difference. Now, we will start that way in the near future, and I've got some software that I've been looking into for quite a while called Reticulum, and that is an open source mesh protocol for communications. Does not have to use IP addresses and so forth. So this is like ideal. This is what I was looking to develop ourselves if we couldn't find something that already existed. But since it already does, I believe that that's probably the way we're going to move forward with the mesh networking stuff to get started. We will establish the ability for Qortal to communicate over the reticulum's protocol so that we don't have to have reliance upon the internet. Now, we're always going to need an internet, not always, but for quite a while, we're going to need at least a couple internet bridges to get across longer distances until the little pockets of mesh networks can start communicating directly to each other, right? So this is always going to be something where it takes a little bit of time to establish this. Now, if I established a mesh node here in my local city, and a few other people that do have nodes here local with me, if they start getting connected to me, and then I provide an internet gateway that connects to the rest of the network, then those other people, they don't need internet connections, right? So we can start that way, and where people will have multiple internet gateways on a single mesh, and the rest of the users can basically piggyback off of those internet gateways to do all of the stuff that's necessary on top of Qortal. And we start that way, and then eventually the meshes get to the point where they're able to bridge directly to each other, and they don't need those internet bridges anymore. And so that's really how it's going to end up playing out, I'm pretty certain. And then we can also, like, I found an open source satellite recently that someone pointed out to me that could potentially be utilized for, cross ocean communications and so forth. And I've got developers who can actually build that kind of stuff, right? But we need to get a little further along. We need more people paying attention to the project. We need more, people purchasing Qort from the trade portal so that we can get more value into it, and I can have more flexibility to start getting these things done, right? Like, we're trying to build everything completely open source. We're trying to build everything with no intellectual property or anything like that, right? So that means that I don't own any of this stuff, right? So I'm not making any money just from doing this. It's all about, like, community support. So the more community support we get, the more the flexibility the development team will have, and the more we can ultimately get accomplished, and the more developers we can get on board and get them away from working day jobs and start paying them directly in Qort for doing this, and they can start working full time for us, and it'll be like much, much faster development, right? So we do need the community support right now, especially, and we're going to need that continually, because we never plan to own any of the technology that we're building. We're giving it all to the world for free and keeping it all completely open source. So yeah, the mesh stuff is going to take a little while to get established. That's just how it goes. Like, you can't just say, oh, overnight we're going to magically create a completely new base level infrastructure for connectivity and it's just going to work. Like, no, that's not how it works. So we'll have, oh, you're muted again, bro.
Yeah, but it's kind of good that way. I didn't interrupt you because I was going to interrupt you. It also matters about the community, like you said, because I mean, to truly create a good mesh network type situation, you're going to have a bunch of users with devices in close enough proximity to each other to create that mesh network. Yep. And like things like that have been done, at big, huge festivals that are in really rural zones, like Burning Man. It was is a good example where people have used mesh networks to be able to communicate, and it's just creating kind of your own internet. It's and if I'm not understanding it correct, or if I understand it correctly, you can't access the network unless you're running one of the mesh network devices, or do you have to have permission from the network to join?
Right? So it's not going to be like permissions. It's really going to be in theory, the way I see it, as the permission to join will just be basically you running a node, right? And you can also run what's called a light node, which doesn't actually synchronize the chain. We'll have all of the ability to connect to the network built into all of that. So, but initially, right now, the way that Reticulum works, I'm not 100% certain on the authentication portion of that. So, but what it does is it allows you to connect. So yes, you're going to have some sort of software set up on the machine in order to get that connectivity. It's not like, so the software already exists for like wireless connectivity, right? So everybody's already got that software. So they think that it's just like, oh, it's just a default thing, right? But the software for that had to be built at some point, right? So we'll get further along, right? And that'll just be like, oh yeah, connecting to the mesh, we can do that like this, right? And so yeah, it's
just like that
yeah, like it's going to be peer-to-peer. It's the same overall concepts of Qortal, like on the base level, like peer-to-peer everything, right? The mesh is the same idea. It's just instead of utilizing it for just, data and so forth, we'll utilize it to rebuild the ISPs and the internet connections themselves. So you won't need to connect to the internet anymore because you'll connect to Qortal, and Qortal will have everything that you used on the internet, but built in a way better way. And you won't have to even worry about, like, you won't care about having an internet connection or paying for an ISP anymore. Like, it just won't matter.
Well, I have asked you before about the crossover, though. Like, if I know that you have shared with me ways that you can access Qortal hosted websites, if I'm understanding it correctly, through the Qortal.link, which we'll share in a minute. Let me go ahead and pull that up so I can.
So all that is a node. It's just a Qortal node that I've set up with an Nginx proxy in front of it. And I have a whole guide on exactly how I did this on the wiki. So if somebody wants to set up a node just like this with SSL and everything, they can do that. But this is just a Qortal node that's set up acting as an internet gateway. So you can go to whatever domain. This one happens to be Qortal.link, and then / whatever registered name, if the node is set up like mine is, where it allows any registered name to show up. You can / Crowetic / any other registered name, and it'll pull it up. And now, so this website is actually not hosted on a server or on a domain or any of that. This is actually hosted on top of QDN, which means it's actually distributed amongst the peers of the Qortal network, completely encrypted and completely chunked on the back end until you click it to view it, and then it gets pulled, decrypted, built, and displayed. So yeah, this is actually not on a web server at all. Even this Qortal.link it's just a Qortal node, right?
What exactly, excuse my ignorance on this, is a static site, a static website?
Okay, so, and I kind of explain that on this site so that people can like get an idea. So they hear the term static and they think, oh, it must not be able to have any videos or anything like that. But that's not true, right? Like, this site has videos on it. It has music on it. You can see that it looks and functions just like, any other website that you see. The only thing that you can't do is have like cookies that change based on which user is viewing it, right? Which in my opinion is kind of a good thing, honestly. And we will also have, the video is going to take a minute to load because it is still loading from the internet at that point. But if you were to load this through Qortal, that video would have been
fast. Yeah, because you're using the actual
So if you're using this, you're still also dealing with the issues of the traditional internet. You have to wait for the data to come to your computer, right? But if you do this through Qortal and actually do it through the UI, that video would have just been played instantly, right? This one, I don't have those files up there because right now we have a 500 megabyte limit on each name. That also is going to be changing here in the near future, along with the ability to cross name link. So you'll be able to have, Crowetic on QDN that links to any other registered name on QDN, and you can have, multiple sites that are linked together, right? So you can utilize multiple and do different things with different ones. So I could have a separate one set up just for my videos or whatever, right? But ultimately what's going to come down to is that Qapps is going to make a lot of the stuff that we're utilizing websites for right now not really useful anymore, because you'll not need to build a whole website just to display a video. You'll go to a video hosting Qapp and you'll publish your video, and then other people can see it like that. And they don't have to download the entirety of the video hosting application and all of its data just to see it, right? They'll be able to do it individual basis. And the same thing when we're doing pictures and stuff on QChat, you'll still have to click to view it. So even if someone's sending pictures in QChat, you won't be able to just see those pictures. You'll have to specifically click and see it, because we don't want any data on anyone's node that they didn't specifically choose to be there, right? And so it all of it comes back down to the same thing: individual control, individual sovereignty, and complete P2P. And all the back end of QDN is encrypted and chunked. So none of this data is able to be viewed at all unless it is specifically clicked to be viewed.
Right? Okay. Now, what I was kind of curious about is, let's say I have a RiceTVX website that has a community section where people can post under different topics or whatever the situation might be.
Yeah, like a forum. Yeah.
Yeah. If I had a forum that was on Qortal and people were to access it through Qortal.link, would they be able to communicate with people in real time like they would in Qortal as far as the forum is concerned. Does that make sense?
No, not with the current setup of this, because that's just a gateway node. It doesn't allow authentication with Qortal, right? So you don't have an account assigned to this. You're just viewing the data that's on QDN. However, so multiple people have asked this question, right? So what it'll come down to is we will probably end up building some sort of browser. And now the UI itself is basically a browser already. You can go in there, you can view websites, you can do all the stuff you can do with a browser inside the UI, but just for stuff hosted on QDN. Now, what we can do is take an open source browser like, Chromium. Take that browser, build in authentication for Qortal, so an account creation methodology, just like we use for the UI. So it creates you an account, saves you a backup file, yada, yada, yada. Then also build in a light node into that, right? So you don't have to synchronize the chain. You just get the necessary chain data from the connected full node peers that you have. And boom, 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 you now have access to everything on Qortal without needing to run a full node, without needing to do anything else, just installing a browser essentially, and you're good to go, right? And so, yeah, and then you can have authentication and communications and all of that. But right now at the moment, no. You have to have a node running. So you have to be able to have an account to have that authentication, to be able to do posts and communications and so forth. So we don't have that built into like a browser type yet. We will though.
Okay. I want to remind people too, if they check out those previous interviews, they'll find information about like the peer-to-peer encrypted messaging, peer-to-peer trading via the trade portal, which we kind of talk about a little bit during Crypto Mindset Reset. So I don't want to cover that too much in this. Voting is coming, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Now, voting, is it going to be based off of reputation, and what is the voting itself going to be utilized for within the ecosystem?
Okay, so voting right now, it hasn't been totally nailed down as far as like what it will be used for and what it will not be used for. But essentially, any proposal to modify anything on the platform, including adding new coins that are supported in both the trade portal and wallets. So another thing that people need to realize is that Qortal is definitely not just a single coin, right? It's a whole ecosystem. It has 6 foreign coins, we call them technically, because they're not, part of our blockchain. And those coins and which coins get supported in the future will also be controlled by the voting system. So the
coins real quick, you're talking about, they're the coins that you can trade against Qortal in the trade portal.
Yeah, against Qortal.
And all that just rhymed too. Trade portal.
Yeah.
I don't know if you did that on purpose or what.
No, we didn't. No. But actually, Qortal is just portal with a backwards P, right? So it's easy to remember.
So on the where was it? I was seeing it under market, under the Explorer is where you can see the other coins that you could trade, which would include Litecoin, Pirate Chain, Dogecoin, Digibyte, Ravencoin, and Bitcoin. And I know you guys are going to be adding more throughout the future when it happens. So I just want to let people know about this part.
Right. And so you have local wallets in your Qortal account for all of these coins, whether you use them or not, they're there available to you, right? And so the voting system is going to be definitely used to decide which new coins get supported. So the community will have a direct say in that. It'll be definitely used to decide the block reward modifications once it gets through its initial cycle and gets down to 2 Qrt per block. A certain type of vote will take place once per year in blocks, and that will determine whether the block reward goes up or down. And now in Qortal, we don't have a cap on the total number of coins, but as you can see, there's only like 5 million coins that exist right now. So the release schedule is quite slow. But we do have a total cap on the block reward. It'll never be more than 5 coin per block where it started, and it'll never be less than 1. So it's a different model. Now, literally everything in Qortal is completely different than any other blockchain you've ever dealt with. So we do everything differently for a reason. And so, the voting system will be utilized to make all kinds of changes to the platform. Now, if somebody has an idea and they want to propose that idea, that's a great place to do that, right? In the voting system, they put up this idea, they write a proposal, they say, this is what the idea is, this is what it'll do, and the rest of the network can then vote on that. And your vote weight is directly correlated to your blocks minted. Now, right now, since that's the only leveling method in the system, that's the only way to get influence right now. In the future, people like yourself, I envision a leveling method that comes from being a content creator and getting upvotes from other leveled minters in the system, and you can get a level based on that, right? So somebody who decides, oh, well, for whatever reason, I don't want to run a node, or I can't run a node, but I love, creating videos and good content and stuff, they can potentially gain a level from that. And now, longer term in the future, it should be probably where certain leveling methods have a higher vote weight than others with regard to certain vote types, right? So if you're not a minter and you have a method or a level from being a content creator, you don't have as much of a say in votes that pertain to minting stuff because you're not a minter, right? So yeah, those kinds of things will get nailed down as time goes on, but the basic voting system will be done here very soon. Since we finally got rid of those who were controlling a bunch of accounts for themselves, we can now push out the real voting system, and we can make future decisions of the platform with that, including probably the decision on which decisions can be made with the voting system, because that's something that people have asked me, and I'm like, I just don't know. Like, we will have to come to a consensus on that as well with the community to decide, like, which decisions can we even make with the voting system? Which ones make sense to make this way, right? So yeah, we have to all just decide this, right? This is all a community thing. It's not just, yo, what are you going to do as the development team? No, like, what do you think we should do with this? Like, and I've taken a lot of input from multiple community members already as far as getting to the concepts that we have so far for the way that the voting system will function and so forth. So really is a community effort, guys. Like, we're not just saying this, and I take the time out of my day to communicate with anyone who messages me. So if you need questions answered, or you just want to talk to me, whatever, just do it. I'm always there, always answering questions, always helping people out. I don't want to be seen as, yo, he's like the leader and nobody can talk to him because he's up here above everybody. I don't like that. So I really do take time out of my day every day to reply to anyone who messages me. And I encourage everyone in the Qortal community to do the same thing, and help anyone out, right? Like, so it's all just about community for us here.
Sweet, man. No, I love that. I love that. And, I mean, I've got a lot more questions, but I think that we can obviously do another follow-up to kind of not make
there's a lot to it, right?
Yeah, and I don't want to make this interview too much longer than it's already turning into, because a lot of people in crypto don't seem to have the best attention spans these days. Yes. I hope that changes, because I like these longer form interviews, because I feel like we're getting more information from it. And for those that are taking the time to really watch all the way through and get a better understanding, I greatly appreciate you being here. The last thing I want to pull up and make sure I got the screen share for this is your personal website.
Yes.
So and again, everything that we talk about is going to be linked down below. I'll even put Jason's Telegram or email information if you want to
Telegram.
contact.
I don't like email very much, so okay. Telegram is much better.
Yeah,
I can use email. I just don't check it that often. So
yeah, I will include that. With Crowetic hardware development, one of the things that you're doing is taking refurbished computers or older computers and installing new software to make them run the Qortal blockchain full nodes. You're also doing this with Raspberry Pis. You have Raspberry Pis that also are connected up with, and we'll show pictures here in a minute, but Raspberry Pis that are connected up with keyboards and a mouse that you can literally plug into a monitor and plug and play and have an operating system and be able to utilize Qortal just like that.
Yep.
What do you want to share about what you do over at Crowetic hardware development? As I'm
so yeah, the thing that people have really been liking lately is the new service that we just offered. If you can click the details button there, or you can go to hardware at the top and then go to rebuilt machines.
So where am I going?
Rebuilt machines? No, the hardware. Yeah, you were
hardware.
At the right yeah, rebuilt machines.
Rebuilt
at the bottom.
Machines.
Yeah. And that link is also in the middle of the main page. So basically what I'm doing is, and this is mostly just me doing this with the help with some shipping from my other partner in the company and some help with some 3D printing on plastics if things are broken and whatever, but from my brother. But so it's me, my brother, and G, who are Crowetic hardware development. I do most of the prototyping and stuff with the help of some of my other developers. But so what I'm doing with this service is purchasing laptops and ones that are like missing hard drives or whatever, little things that they need to make them full and whole again. And so I'm getting these, upgrading as much of the hardware as I can while also keeping the price as low as possible for people, and then installing Linux, which makes it better by default, making that Linux look, feel, and function as much like Windows as possible, so that people coming from Windows should be a really simple switch to a machine built by CHD. So doing that, getting these things built, getting these things installed with Qortal and all the other base level software you need, the VLC media player, all open source stuff, and getting them automated so that Qortal, even if it somehow falls behind in version, will automatically fix itself so that your node will be running no matter what, right? Because that's the main issue with Qortal right now is people having issues with their node and not having the tech savvy to diagnose it and fix it. So I'm like, what can I do about this? So what I've done is written some scripts that actually automate the process of keeping Qortal running and keeping it updated. So these things should, no matter what, if you keep them on, should keep you connected to the Qortal network and everything running smoothly, right? And so I wanted that to be a thing, right? So if people, even if they are tech savvy and they just don't have the time to do it or whatever, they can pick up a machine from us. Now, of course, we have the Cortector, which is the thing based off of the Raspberry Pi, and the Cortector KB, which is also based off of the Pi 400. Now, those are more open source as far as the hardware goes. Now, the CPU on those still isn't fully open source, but it doesn't have the stuff in it like the Intel CPUs do. The next generation of these that we're going to build, the Gen 3 Cortector, is actually going to be a fully open source board with fully open source processors and everything. So we're trying to get as open source on the hardware level and software level as possible, and make machines that are built to run Qortal, because we firmly believe that Qortal is the future infrastructure for the world. So yeah, there's some options here for people to pick up machines that they can run Qortal with. Okay,
so I was just looking at, as I'm looking at the website, I was looking at, let me pull it up so I can see it. This is on sale for $325. This is
that's the Cortector KB.
So it comes with the Raspberry Pi 4.
Yeah, this is the Pi 400. It's actually built into that keyboard, so you need nothing more than that. And we 3D printed we 3D printed that SSD case that attaches on the side of it there, and so yeah.
What's the difference with this unit being $475? It's because it's the same.
Yeah, almost. These are 8 gig Pi 4s that are in there, and the Pi 400 is 4 gigs, so the RAM is double on these, and also. Well, there's a slight difference. This one is obviously not built into a keyboard, and has double the RAM, and it can be like just set in the corner of the room without a monitor and be used as a node. You can use your other computer and connect to that node to use the UI on your computer and the node on that, right? So if you just want to have a node that's sitting in the corner minting, that's a great one for that, because it takes 5 volts of power and 25 watts max, and it can run in the corner by itself doing nothing, just sitting there minting all day long. And I've got
this is half the speed, basically, half the
RAM. That's it. It's half the RAM. Yeah. The rest of it is very similar. The hardware is very similar. And the whole reason for the main difference in price is because the Pi 4 8 gigs are basically impossible to find right now. And so they are much more expensive than they should be. And so that's why our prices are a little higher on those. We can't do anything about it right now. The only way you can acquire them is to pay more for it. So, and I try to keep the laptop prices as low as I possibly can. Well, obviously still making a little bit for my time and effort that's put into this, but a lot of the prices that I put on there are comparable to buying a machine that's not even fully functioning on eBay. So, and I wanted to keep it that way so that people could get these things, because my whole goal here is to expand the reach of the Qortal network, right? So, yeah.
No, I mean, I love it. I mean, I do. I really do. Now, I want to make sure that I'm saying all this correctly, because I said it and you haven't corrected me. So I think I'm saying it right. But this right here, what we're seeing on screen, is literally you have a monitor and you could just plug this into a monitor and you have an operating system.
Yep, monitor and power. So it comes with the power and it comes with the cable that goes from the micro HDMI to a regular HDMI. So all you have to do, take that regular HDMI and plug it into anything that supports regular HDMI as far as the display goes. So you can use a TV, you can use a monitor, anything like that, and you're good to go.
No, and it definitely, I think that you got fair prices when it comes to the actual laptops you're doing. And
yeah, that one's got 32 gigs of RAM, man. It's not even that old. Like some of these things are like pretty much new laptops that I just happen to get for decent prices, and I'm able to. And I upped the RAM on that one, and that's a really nice computer right there. And so a lot of these are like so nice that I'm like, I feel sad when I sell them because I'm like, oh, it's so
much
nice.
love into them.
Yeah, but I'm really happy to get these out to the community, and so that people can have a really nice computer, because it's not just a Qortal computer. And of course, that'll be what it's used for mostly in the future when everything's built on top of Qortal. But for now, it's also a really secure, regular, normal computer, right? So you can do all the things you do on your normal computer on it right now until that's all built on top of Qortal and made completely decentralized, encrypted, and super, super secure, right? So, yeah.
Well, sweet, man. I think we covered a lot, and I hope people have, learned a lot about Qortal. And if you, enjoyed this video and you haven't seen the previous interviews, please make sure you check those out. I will have those linked down below. I don't even remember that first conversation that we had. That's on Odyssey. I actually really wanted to go back and watch the last interview before we did this one, but I didn't have a chance, so I apologize about that. So hopefully,
no worries.
Wasn't too much repetition there.
No, I don't think so. I think we covered a lot. I mean, there's so many different aspects to it. Like, it's kind of really hard to double cover things unless we just literally talk about the same things over and over again. Like, because there's so much to it. And the thing is, too, like, just because there's so much to it and it sounds really complex, I always like to point out the fact that it's really easy to use. So,
yeah,
yes, getting it set up on certain environments, it might be a little bit more difficult than others. That's why we have these machines that you can buy that are already set up. But on Windows, it's literally 2 installers. Most people are running Windows anyways. You run 2 installers, you end up with 2 applications, Qortal Core and the Qortal UI. Qortal UI is the interface. Qortal Core is the one that runs all the time in the background, does the blockchain stuff, right? The UI is very simple to use. Creating an account has not ever stumbled anyone up. It's literally like next, download backup file, finish. Like, boom, you're done. And then inside, it's really straightforward. So, I mean, it sounds complex when we're talking about it, and it is complex on the back end and as far as how everything works and so forth. But using it is simple.
Yeah, well, I mean, I try to equate it to like when people don't understand the technology and they're afraid to use the technology because they don't understand it. I use email and still don't really understand how that works.
Right.
I make it sound so bizarre, but these magical devices that we have that allow for us to have this going on where we can see each other. You're in another state in a different time zone than I am, and we're able to look at each other and communicate in real time. And I have no clue how that operates, but I have a YouTube channel and I put out videos all the time.
Right.
So, don't hinder yourself because you don't understand something, because you don't necessarily have to fully understand something to utilize it.
That's so true too. I'm glad you brought that up.
So yeah, dude, thank you again for your time. Do you have anything that you want to add or any final thoughts before we do wrap up this particular interview today?
I mean, ultimately, if things go the way that we think they will, things are going to get much worse in the traditional system. And you need an alternative, whether you're actively utilizing it right now or not. Just get involved. Come join us. Be part of the Qortal network. Get your node running. Get minting, just in case, right? Even if things don't go to shit over here in the normal system, whatever, right? Like, just check it out. That's all I can say to people is just check it out.
And see, I'll add this. If somebody wants to opt out of the traditional legacy system, and I talk about agorism, and agorism deals a lot with counter economics, parallel societies, parallel marketplaces, however you want to put that. I really feel that Qortal, and this is just my opinion, and I'm going to be doing more deeper dives. I mean, this is why, we're having these discussions, but I feel like Qortal, the project, the blockchain, is going to give us the tools that we need to create those parallel societies, those parallel marketplaces, those parallel social media systems, and utilize counter economics and get away from the legacy traditional financial system, which is, I think,
Exactly.
the goal of a lot of people that, especially early people got involved in crypto. Now there's a lot of people that just want to make more dollars. They want more fiat. But aside from those people, the people that are in this for the real change, I think most people will find value in what you guys are trying to create. So thank you again, man. Just bear with me real quick. I'll do the wrap up. And again, we'll have links down below for everything we shared on today's video. So make sure you're doing your own research, doing a deeper dive, because it's hard to explain this in just a couple interviews. So definitely check it out. Also, make sure you're checking out those previous interviews. Those will be linked down below as well. Make sure you subscribe here at Rice TVX, as well as my new channel, Rice Against the Grain. And before we wrap things up, I do want to let people know we're recording this on the 20th of December. It should be released on the 21st or 22nd. I want to wish everybody happy holidays and encourage you to be a blessing to others. Treat people how you want to be treated. Be the glitch you want to see in the matrix. Be the change you want to see in the world. And until next time, practice change.